It works. Beautiful. Hopefully the audio works too. How's everybody doing? Beautiful Thursday afternoon in the city right now. The sun actually just peaked out. So the fog is done. That means I could go swimming here in a few minutes and I won't feel like I'm in Arctic waters. I'll feel cold because the bay is still, well, how warm is the bay? Let's look. San Francisco Bay water temperature. Oh, nice. It's 61.5 degrees. That's awesome. Last time I was in the area to swim, it was like 51. So that's a huge difference. Anytime you're dealing with water, 1 degree is a big deal. It's not like the air because it surrounds you, it envelops you. It's like the force from Star Wars. It's everywhere, right? It's a living, breathing thing. But that water, the difference between 51 degrees and 61.5 degrees is a huge deal. So I'm looking forward to being at Aquatic Park in a couple hours, and man, I don't even need my wetsuit at 61.5 degrees. I'm still going to wear it because the wetsuit helps you float, so it's easier to swim. And I have a race coming up in 2 weeks up in the High Sierra in Huntington Lake, where the water the other day when I checked was only 47 degrees, which absolutely sucks. That's going to be terrible if it's only 47, but it's going to be warmer because it's 106 degrees in the Central Valley right now, which means it's like 85 degrees at 7,000 feet, which means that 47-degree water is going to heat up pretty fast. So I'm not worried about it being 47, but I will need a wetsuit for that race. So anyway, beautiful Thursday. I will be back out at the 49ers facility next Tuesday. That's the next media availability at practice. But there was one yesterday which was interesting again. Unfortunately, the 49ers were practicing on the far field because they always want to keep their practice field in good shape. They're practicing there on natural grass, so they alternate every day. Yesterday, they were a bit further away, but I was still able to track the completions for the quarterbacks. I still was able to see which receivers were standing out. And to me, that was the most intriguing part of practice in OTAs is that the frontline receivers weren't available, either due to personal matters. Deebo Samuel wasn't in the building yesterday, or due to some minor muscle strains. Keyword minor, don't freak out about these injuries, but because of some of these injuries, the 49ers were down Richie James as well. They were down Brandon Ayuk. They were down Travis Benjamin, and obviously Deebo Samuel wasn't there. So your two top receivers were Mohamed Sanu and Jawan Jennings, with Trent Sherfield, the pickup out of Arizona. He was a special teams ace for the Cardinals here over the past 3 years. He also got a lot of run yesterday. So you had a receiving core for the 49ers that Kyle Shanahan certainly doesn't hope that he sees dressing for games in October or in November, as was the case last season when the 49ers played the Packers, completely decimated on Thursday Night Football. But I don't think that Kyle Shanahan really minds the situation right now. It's June, it's not October. And OTAs are about showing who's in shape, who can learn the playbook. And the guys that are going to benefit the most from this are the players who aren't as experienced with the 49er system. Now, obviously, Mohamed Sanu is plenty experienced with the system. He looked good on Wednesday. But I think players like Trent Sherfield, who I'm almost sure is making the team because he has $200,000 in guaranteed money on his deal, and he's a special teams ace. He's new to the system. He needs to pick it up. It's a good thing he's getting OTAs. And then you look at some of the younger guys that are trying to make the 53-man roster. Jawan Jennings, who was hurt last year, but was an intriguing prospect coming out of Tennessee. I wrote a lot about him. This is a good time for him to shine, and he made some catches yesterday. And then finally, Austin Watkins Jr., who's the undrafted free agent of the 49ers 2021 draft class at receiver. They're hoping he can become something like the next Kendrick Bourne. And by that, I mean an undrafted free agent who turns into an NFL success story. Kendrick Bourne obviously came out of Eastern Washington, UDFA, made the team in 2017. There were some bumps in the road. There were some discipline issues that Kyle Shanahan had to iron out. But you can't not say that Kendrick Bourne was a success story, because he obviously was. He ended up signing a 3-year, $15 million deal with the New England Patriots. Anytime you can get to that third contract, which is what Kendrick Bourne got to after playing his fourth year with the 49ers on a tender, you are indeed a success story. And he was a reliable one. He didn't miss a single game due to injury for the 49ers. And they're certainly looking to replace the production that he brought to that third receiver role. So my question is, will Austin Watkins Jr., who's Sammy Watkins' younger cousin, be able to carve out a similar niche as Kendrick Bourne did with the 49ers? I think it's obviously going to be harder than it was 4 years ago for Kendrick Bourne to find a spot on the 53-man roster back when the 49ers just didn't have a good roster, right? But I do think that Austin Watkins Jr. might be more NFL ready than Kendrick Bourne was back in 2017. He's over 20 pounds heavier, strong guy, NFL body already, 210 pounds. And Kendrick Bourne was skinny coming out of Eastern Washington. He really had to strengthen up over a few years. And boy, is Austin Watkins Jr. dependable. This is where I want to share my day's article with you so you can check out what I'm talking about. I have to open this up on The Athletic, and then I will answer some questions. But I talked to Austin Watkins Jr.'s college coach, Bill Clark, at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. And, we went through some of the strength program that they went through, because if you watch Watkins' film, and there's the link for the piece that I wrote on him, his college film, he is putting defensive backs literally on their back in the run game. And this is a 210-pound receiver. This guy's built solid. This guy could come in and I think run block at an NFL level immediately. There's no strength and conditioning program needed. Obviously, I think he's probably still going to get stronger when he's in an NFL weight room working with an NFL staff. But I think from day one, and you can't tell this right now because obviously OTAs are really light on the contact, but I think from day one, Austin Watkins Jr. is going to be ready to contribute in Kyle Shanahan's outside zone blocking scheme, in which receivers are required to be very physical out on the perimeter. That gives him a inside track, a leg up to either make the team or at least make the practice squad. Now, what else happens at receiver is still so unpredictable, because we don't even know, who the top name in the room is going to be for sure yet, right? I talked a whole YouTube Live, or maybe a whole YouTube Lives, and I've written so many articles about the possibility of the 49ers acquiring Julio Jones. And right now, Atlanta's still in a holding pattern. They definitely want to trade him. The 49ers are definitely interested, but nobody knows what that price is going to be. If the 49ers end up with Julio, which, I can't even put a percentage chance on that, because I just don't know what the competing offers are going to be. I can tell you the 49ers are extremely constrained by their salary cap and their draft capital situations, but we can't rule out Julio Jones to the 49ers. If they do acquire him, that's going to make that receiver room even more crowded than it already is. And what's happening right now is that the 49ers receiver room is crowded, I think, with some bottom half of the room talent, guys vying for those sixth and potentially seventh spots, between guys like Travis Benjamin, maybe even River Craycraft, obviously, in that mix. They brought in Benny Fowler. They brought in another Jones. They brought in Andy Jones. Most of those guys are just going to end up being off-season bodies, but it is a crowded situation to fight for that, sixth spot, that seventh spot. And if you add Julio Jones to your team, he's obviously not a 6 or 7 guy. Julio Jones is your immediate number one. Well, that drops everybody else down one spot in the pecking order, and it makes it even more competitive to get the spot number 6 and spot number 7, which is why it's so hard for me to pencil out a potential landing location for an undrafted rookie like Austin Watkins Jr. But I can tell you that he's extremely reliable. He only had 2 drops on 1-on-1 catchable passes at UAB, Alabama Birmingham. 76% of his catches went for either a first down or a touchdown, which probably reminds you a lot of what happened with Kendrick Bourne late in his 49ers career. He became one of those money guys in the red zone and on third down. And, just in talking to the staff that developed Austin Watkins out of community college in Kansas, he came from Fort Myers, Florida, JC ball in Kansas, and then to Birmingham. The staff that developed him said this is the kind of guy that you cannot get out of the weight room, that you cannot get out of the gym unless you come in and say, hey, we're locking up, you have to leave. Otherwise, he's just going to sit there and he's going to keep on lifting. He's going to keep on working out. He's going to keep on working on his routes out of the practice field. And I can guarantee you the 49ers love that kind of stuff, for a couple of reasons. A, the only way an undrafted rookie is going to make this team or this practice squad is if they can work, if they have a work ethic because of the crowded nature of this 49ers roster. And B, they need physicality on the outside. You need to be able to block as a 49ers wide receiver in Kyle Shanahan's outside zone scheme. So that's why I think that Austin Watkins is a guy to really watch. He separated himself at the Senior Bowl, quite literally. He got some good separation there. He can make contested catches, which I don't think is quite as important in Shanahan's scheme because he really can get guys open. He's not throwing a lot of fade balls. Obviously, you want a receiver who can make contested catches, but I think that the less illustrious stuff, the stuff that's not as noticed on YouTube highlight reels, like that run blocking in space, is probably higher on the checklist for Kyle Shanahan. You got to have good hands. You got to catch the balls. You got to be able to separate. When he schemes you to be separated, you have to be able to execute that. But if you can't block, you can't play. And I think that might be the main thing, holding a guy like Richie James back, who is a little bit, leaner build, and definitely wasn't as good of a run blocker as somebody like Kendrick Bourne, who got way more playing time at that third wide receiver position than James in the past. So we'll see where Austin Watkins slots in. But I want to take some questions here, and then everybody stay on. I didn't want to begin talking about it till we had more people aboard here on this live, but I will talk about how Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo have looked at 49ers practice. So tell your friends about the channel, get everybody aboard, and we'll get to what everybody really cares about, which is that quarterback discussion here in a couple minutes after I answer some of these questions. What are the minicamp dates? I will let you know right now. So first, the next availability for the 49ers is an OTA practice next Tuesday, which is June 8th. So we'll be back out on the practice field at Levi Stadium, or outside of Levi Stadium at the team facility, to take a look at the third and final open media OTA practice. Then we'll be back exactly a week after that for minicamp. Now, that part of the offseason program for the 49ers is mandatory. So players have to be at that. That's the veteran minicamp. Also, obviously includes rookies, but that is on June 15th. That starts on June 15th and then continues to June 17th. Now, generally, even though that has a 3-day slot, generally it's only open to the media, and I think there are only practices on 2 days. So I expect that to be June 15th and 16th. I penciled that into my calendar. That is 2 weeks from now. Will be at the mandatory veteran minicamp at the 49ers facility. Now, funny enough, there won't, shouldn't be too much of a difference in attendance between what's happening now at voluntary OTAs and what will be happening in 2 weeks at involuntary minicamp, because everybody has shown up to these 49ers OTAs. Every single healthy player has now been at OTAs for the 49ers, which I think is remarkable. That includes Robbie Gould, who was there, on display at the practice field yesterday. That's a player that I don't think that we did expect to see, because he has no bonus money tied to these workouts in his contract. But even Robbie Gould was there, and he was talking to Tabor Pepper, the 49ers long snapper, who he hasn't worked all too much with on the field. So I think that even Robbie Gould finds it important to be there to hone and refine some timing issues that can arise between different long snappers, different holders, so he can kick effectively for the 49ers in 2021. In the larger picture, though, the fact that every single healthy player has been at the voluntary portion of 49ers OTAs, I think is notable, because just go, up Interstate 5 to Seattle, where they have 22 guys at their OTAs. Everybody, including Russell Wilson, is staying away. You've heard about the drama in Green Bay. Even outside of Aaron Rodgers, I know that their receivers, I think, are staying away from at least part of OTAs. And, this is all, the NFL is an extremely nuanced league where small margins are going to be the difference between victory and defeat. We see it every year. And who's to say that extra practice time, extra refinement that happens during the OTA sessions, especially for the rookies, right? Especially for the rookies and the younger guys and the new pickups that are picking up the intricacies of Kyle Shanahan's playbook. Who's to say that that's not going to prevent a guy from running a wrong route in a crucial situation on fourth down in the fourth quarter in October or November? Who's to say that it won't make somebody one step better, one detail better come the regular season? And if that one detail is the difference between winning and losing a game, then I think it's worth it. And even on a more general level, it just shows greater team buy-in from the 49ers. If you have every single guy at the voluntary portion of OTAs, and no other team has that kind of attendance in the NFL, maybe a couple do, but I think even the most well-attended OTAs around the rest of the league are like 90 to 95%, not 100%. But if you have every guy bought in on that level, it shows that the culture is healthy. It shows that the mentality is positive. And, even if it doesn't yield exact, precise dividends on the field, which I think it will, because I think football is such a game of organized chaos, such a precise sport, I think it will yield dividends for the 49ers. But even if it doesn't, it's a sign that the 49ers' heads are on a collaborative pace. So I think that is really the biggest development that we could really glean from these, OTAs that will become mandatory mini camps in just a couple weeks. Yeah, I do think that Arden Key is going to make the team. If you take a look at my 53-man roster projection, I have Arden Key on there. By the way, I'm going through the questions. I didn't just randomly bring up Arden Key for no reason. But I think Arden Key will make the team, and I think that the 49ers, they gave him bonus money in his contract. I think there is $100,000 that Arden Key got in his deal. Not bonus money. He got guaranteed money, $100,000 guaranteed in his deal. So did Mo Hurst. Key and Hurst are the two Raiders free agent acquisitions for the 49ers. And since both of those guys got guaranteed money in their deals, you can assume that the 49ers have at least a strong belief that both of them will make the 53-man roster. Then you get to watch Key work with Chris Kasarik. Then you get to see what happens there, because that's certainly a strength of the 49ers is the coaching in that defensive line room. In fact, you go to my Twitter, Lombardi himself on Twitter, a great video I shared. I think KMBR got it yesterday, but I retweeted it. Daryl Tapp, 12-year NFL veteran on the defensive line. He actually played for Chris Kasarik in Detroit 2014 and 2015. 49ers actually hired Daryl Tapp to be their assistant defensive line coach. And Daryl Tapp he still looks like he could take snaps and play right now. In fact, he pushed Darian Daniels out of the way during one of the sled drill pushes yesterday and did it himself. And Daryl Tapp just blew up the sled. It just lit the 49ers defensive line group on fire. And you think about Chris Kasarik, who's been called by one of the coaches who mentored him a raccoon on meth, because of the energy that he brings to practice. Well, Daryl Tapp took that, methed out energy level and surged it to another level when he stepped in there and just destroyed the blocking sled yesterday. I'm going to share the tweet with you. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter if you haven't done that yet, Lombardi himself. But there's the tweet. You could watch the video there. And boy, between Chris Kasarik and Daryl Tapp, this is absolutely a situation where the 49ers, their heartbeat, the soul of their football team is in the corner of that practice field where the defensive line is working out. They just have energy and oodles of energy and just passion just exuding from that corner of the field where all those defensive linemen are going hard against the blocking sleds. Chris Kasarik's yelling. Now Daryl Tapp is getting in on stuff. And, that was the heartbeat of the NFC Championship run in 2019. And I still think it remains the core of the team today. All right. Now that everybody's on here, we're about 20 minutes in. I'll get back to some of the more of the questions later, but it is time to talk about Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. As you know, I am charting every throw during 11-on-11 periods from both quarterbacks and all the 49ers quarterbacks. The problem is there's only been one throw made in 11-on-11, not by Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo, and that was Josh Rosen. He completed a short pass yesterday. But the charting I'm doing just to give people some context about how accurate these quarterbacks are, it's obviously by no means a definitive analysis of how they're doing because the routes are going to be different. They're throwing against different defenses. They're throwing with different supporting casts. But I do think that the completion percentage so far through the 2 practices that have been open is decently illustrative of how Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance have looked. Jimmy Garoppolo has not thrown an incompletion yet in the 2 practices open to the media. I think he's 9 for 9, and I think Trey Lance is 8 for 13. Jimmy Garoppolo has looked confident, completely in control. He looks like a comfortable, focused veteran who knows the offense, who's running the first team, who is entrenched in his job, which he is. Right now, Jimmy Garoppolo is QB1 for the 49ers, and he absolutely looks the part. In fact, Jimmy Garoppolo has gotten stronger over the offseason. He's put on a little bit of muscle, weighs about the same, but he's transformed his body in a positive way. That was part of his offseason workout regimen. And you could tell he's exuding a lot of physical confidence as he steps out there at that practice field at OTAs. And over the first 10 or so passes in 11-on-11 work, Jimmy Garoppolo has been crisp, has been polished. Is that, some kind of grand overarching statement about the 2021 season? No, of course it's not. This is OTAs. Pads aren't even on yet. It is June 3rd right now. I'm not trying to make some kind of sweeping, overarching conclusion, other than the fact that the people who thought that Trey Lance would come in from day one and that Jimmy Garoppolo is garbage and that Jimmy Garoppolo would immediately unseat it are just completely full of crap. That is the only definitive statement that we can make right now. Jimmy Garoppolo has a good command of the 49ers system. He's still the guy to beat, and it's going to be up to Trey Lance, who we should have expected this whole time. Oh, there's Lexi. How's it going? I'm on my YouTube live. You say hi.
Guys.
Yeah, so it should be completely obvious that Trey Lance is in a situation where he's going to have to make up some ground. And I mean, the guy is coming out of North Dakota State. I mean, he hasn't played a college football game since a full college football season since 2019. He's played 1 game in 2020. This is an FCS school. Impressive as hell, right? I mean, his resume during that 2019 season, his combination of athleticism, mastery of a pro-style playbook, all of the above was something that just blew Kyle Shanahan away. We're not taking anything away from Trey Lance, but we're operating in reality right now. And when we're operating in reality, that means that we have to acknowledge that he's not going to just walk in out of the FCS, having not played an extended game action since 2019, and beat out an established NFL starter who's already been a key part of an NFL team's Super Bowl run. Okay, this is just reality. Garoppolo is going to look better. And anybody who's going to try to tell you that, oh, no, Trey Lance is going to come in, Garoppolo is going to be terrible, was biased in this situation. Okay, Kyle Shanahan tried to tell you guys. John Lynch tried to tell you guys. Everybody, so many people, oh, they're just saying that for clicks or they're smoke screen. No, this is no smoke screen. This is common sense. Garoppolo is your QB1. Trey Lance is your very raw QB2 who has amazing potential upside. Will he reach that upside? I don't know, but that's why the 49ers picked him, and we're going to see how he develops. Now, the thing with Lance, when I watch him, he's still a little tentative when he's throwing some of his passes, which is, again, totally to be expected. I don't want anybody to take this out of context, but Trey Lance is still learning the system, and he's still going to be learning it throughout all of OTAs, throughout camp. If the learning curve continues the way that I think it's been going, I think the 49ers are happy. They're going to be thrilled because they're going to have 2 very good options at quarterback. And remember, when we zoom out, that was the goal between all of this. Throughout the whole process, the goal has been to deepen the 49ers quarterback room, and they absolutely have been able to deepen the quarterback room. You have Garoppolo, you have Lance, and hey, maybe even Josh Rosen is going to get more than 1 throw per 2 practices. Then all of a sudden you have 3 guys that are really talented. That's before we even get to Nate Sudfeld, who I think will probably end up being the practice squad quarterback because of the guaranteed money that the 49ers gave him. This is something nobody's talking about, but look at the contractual situation for Nate Sudfeld. $252,000 in guaranteed money which if you divide by 17, that's a 17-week season in the NFL, or 17-game season in the NFL, equals $14,000 per year. Exactly. $14,000 per year is the veteran minimum for the practice squad. So what the 49ers did when they signed Nate Sudfeld, I think, is they said, hey, we're going to guarantee you the practice squad minimum because we can essentially guarantee you a spot on the practice squad. Now, if you beat out Josh Rosen, your QB3, you'll be on the 53-man roster. You're in line to make a whole lot more money, at least the NFL minimum, right? Which is what he signed for. But with that $252,000 guaranteed, at least there's this floor that will keep you in the building. So I think Sudfeld's there. We'll see if Rosen can beat him out. Right now, Sudfeld's taking those QB3 snaps on the pecking order, but I think that that's going to be an open competition. What's not an open competition right now is QB1 and 2. Right now, Garoppolo is entrenched in 1, Lance is 2. We'll see how Lance progresses. We'll see if anything opens up in training camp. But Shanahan has already made clear that if there's going to be a competition, we'll see in training camp. He hasn't said this is an open competition yet. And trust me, coaches will say when it's an open competition. It's really funny. Go back to the 1988 season. Bill Walsh literally got on camera and said, we have a quarterback controversy, and we're going to let Joe Montana and Steve Young compete to see who is the top quarterback in the room. And that sent shockwaves through the football world. I mean, you can still access that clip on YouTube. Bill Walsh talking about, his 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, Joe Montana, being on some kind of competition hot seat with the new guy, Steve Young. I mean, imagine if Twitter existed back then. It would explode. That was an actual competition. Young was getting actual snaps. I mean, Montana was coming off of that disappointing ending to the 1987 season against the Vikings. And the 49ers, it was a seesaw kind of thing in 1988 for the 49ers. They started that season, 6-5. That was when Steve Young had his run, the famous one against the Vikings. And it wasn't until Joe Montana came in, went on a stellar playoff run, led the 49ers to 2 consecutive Super Bowls in 88 and 89, that really quieted down. But that was raging throughout the end of 1987 and the early parts of 1988. So that was in between, right halfway between Super Bowls 1 and 2 for Joe Montana and Super Bowls 3 and 4. You had what I would say is the most famous quarterback controversy of all time. And then Steve Young obviously was able to take the reins later on after Montana hurt his back in that 1991 NFC Championship game. And the rest was history. Young overcame the Cowboys, won a Super Bowl himself. And that was that. So if you want an actual quarterback controversy, actual quarterback battle, that was it. Garoppolo, Lance is not at that level yet. Lance is still learning. It's still so early for Trey Lance. As this develops, maybe we'll see that happen. Obviously, the 49ers want to see it happen. They want Trey Lance to be at that level, but he isn't quite there yet. And again, I'll emphasize it one last time. This is exactly how it was charted out. This should surprise nobody. This is how it is expected. All right, back to your questions. A few more before I have to get going. Any news on Delaney Walker? Yes, they didn't sign Delaney Walker. They signed Pruitt, Walker's old teammate from Tennessee instead. The guy who Pruitt actually replaced Delaney Walker when Delaney Walker got hurt in Tennessee in 2018. So do not expect Delaney Walker to be back unless the 49ers have a lot of injuries at tight end and Walker stays in shape. You have to remember Delaney Walker is going to be 37 years old this season. So I wouldn't exactly expect the 49ers to bring somebody like that in unless it's a complete necessity. I don't expect to hear from Kyle this week. We heard from D'Amico Ryans yesterday. In fact, I don't expect to hear from Kyle until minicamp. Going down through these questions. What's up with the tight end room? They were linked to Hooper last year. Yeah, I mean, Kyle Shanahan likes Austin Hooper, had him with the Falcons. They signed Jordan Reed. Why not? That was a nice flyer for the 49ers when he was healthy. That was good stuff. Now Pruitt and Walker. Is Kyle Shanahan down on Ross Dwelly and Charlie Werner? No, I think Kyle Shanahan just likes to have 4 tight ends. He's done it every single year. He's brought in one of these veterans every single season. I mean, back at the start, in 2017, it was Logan Paulson, who Kyle knew from Washington. And then he brought in Levine Toilolo, who he knew from Atlanta. So, I mean, it's always familiarity that Kyle likes, and he likes that the guy can be able to block. Now, I think Jordan Reed, that situation was different last year. Obviously, there was familiarity from Washington with Jordan Reed, but Jordan Reed was a big time receiving tight end, especially in his prime. He's a Pro Bowler. I think Kyle Shanahan really envisioned the two tight end attack, Kittle and Jordan Reed, just terrorizing defenses in a similar way that New England had with the two tight end attack earlier in the past decade. That obviously didn't come to fruition because we never got to see Reed and Kittle on the field at the same time for more than a few plays due to all those injuries. But I think it was worth the flyer last year. And obviously, you just have to shrug your shoulders and move on. I think now with Pruitt, he's more of a blocking specialist. 49ers just want that fourth tight end, and they want it to be a veteran presence that really steadies the offense at a key spot in the context of the scheme. So I don't think anything's up with Werner or with Ross Dwelley. I think those two guys are who they are. Ross Dwelley, former undrafted free agent, who's developed nicely into his body. Charlie Warner, former sixth-round pick, who's coming along for the 49ers. In a four tight end room, two of your guys are going to be those, just solid players, late-round draft picks. One of them is going to be a superstar in George Kittle, and then you want a veteran to round out the room. That's how the 49ers did it in 2019. Why not do it moving forward? What's the best plan to take reps off of Kittle so that he's healthy and fresh late in the season? Get Julio Jones. That's a good plan, right? That will take some reps off of George Kittle, make him the number one target. Pruitt is a block-first guy and plays out of the backfield. I think we may see Warner as more of a pass catcher this year. Question mark. I'm not sure if that's a question or a statement, but Charlie Warner has the athleticism to run routes. He didn't do it at Georgia, but I think he could do it for the 49ers. Obviously, blocking is his specialty, but I think that there is some untapped potential there in the passing game with him. In fact, during training camp last year, Charlie Warner made some nice catches over the middle, down the hash, that I thought showed off his athleticism, caught the ball at the high point. He rose up to make some plays. I think that's definitely a possibility moving forward. Is Garoppolo looking better this year? I don't know if Garoppolo's looking better this year, but he looks physically stronger so far at practice. And he's definitely focused. He's definitely motivated. Now, we won't know until training camp if that's going to translate over into fully padded action. And we won't know until the games start if any of this is completely legitimate. You just never know fully with practice. But I've been impressed based on the shape that Garoppolo arrived in, and so far, again, he hasn't thrown an incompletion yet in the open practices to the media. So that is notable, but it's not statistically significant yet at this point. Just from the small amount of videos, Trey looks a bit too raw. I mean, we expected Trey Lance to be raw. I'm not calling you out or anything, but this is just calling random, Twitter comments out. Everybody acts surprised when a guy, again, FCS quarterback who's only has one starting season under his belt, shows up at his first NFL practice and looks a little bit raw. I mean, what did you expect? Like, this is exactly what the scouting report on Trey Lance was. This is exactly what Kyle Shanahan has said about Trey Lance. It's why Jimmy Garoppolo is still entrenched as quarterback one for the 49ers. I mean, this is according to script. I don't know what to tell you, people. We have to wait. Trey Lance will have to wait. He'll have to develop. The 49ers understand this, and when he's ready, he's going to play. And I think, even before he's ready to handle quarterback one reins, he's such a good athlete. There's so much that you can do with him that Kyle Shanahan is going to find a way to mix him into the offense. Maybe not as heavy of a runner as Taysom Hill, has been in New Orleans in that quarterback package, but you can filter Trey Lance into football games and get him used to NFL speed without exposing him to unnecessary injury risk. There is a way to do both things. That's another ridiculous binary assumption that people make. Like, oh, just because the 49ers use Trey Lance in specialty packages means that they're exposing him to too much injury. I mean, no, you can do stuff that generally protects players, right? Of course, you can't completely bubble wrap him. You spent way too much draft capital to, just keep him bubble wrap forever, though. So you have to put him out there somehow, but you can put him out there in reasonable ways that allow him to acclimate to NFL game speed, which you can only do by playing, and that also accentuate some of the amazing stuff that he can do, both athletically and cerebrally. I mean, this guy is the full package talent-wise, and you have to develop that. So I fully expect there to be a package that the 49ers use, or more than one package, that includes both Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance on the field at the same time. If Sean Payton is creative enough to do it, you better bet that Kyle Shanahan is creative enough to do it. And he spent way too much to get Trey Lance to not do something really cool and really creative with him that I think can throw defenses for a loop. So look forward to the regular season for that. Looking at Emmanuel is not a true wide receiver. Emmanuel who? Oh, Emmanuel Sanders. Okay, wait. So I have another comment to respond to. Let me read it. Jimmy is not garbage. People like to hang on to that Super Bowl pass, but Emmanuel was too slow to catch that. T.O., Jerry Rice, Tyreek Hill, Julio Jones, Randy Moss all catch that pass. Sanders not a true wide receiver one. He's a great wide receiver too. I mean, a lot of what you're saying, I agree with. Especially the fact that people fixate too much on one Super Bowl pass. I mean, if you're going to fixate on one pass, why aren't you fixating on two? Why aren't you going out and saying, oh, Jimmy Garoppolo threw a beautiful pass to George Kittle at the end of the first half that got called back due to a very ticky-tack penalty. It obviously wasn't Garoppolo's fault. And had that penalty not been called, Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't even need to hit Emmanuel Sanders later in the game, and the 49ers probably win the Super Bowl, right? So, people cherry pick this so much, but when they say, oh, Garoppolo can't throw the deep ball, well, he threw a pretty good, perfect deep ball, not pretty perfect, it was perfect, to George Kittle in crunch time at the end of the first half that would have put the 49ers in excellent position. So why do you toss out that piece of information and only select the piece of information that supports your case? I think that's the problem here. The people zero in on one throw that, by the way, given the leakage of the 49ers defense late in the game, wouldn't have sealed the win, right? Even if Emmanuel Sanders catches the ball, even if Jimmy Garoppolo puts it in a better spot, and he was under pressure too. I mean, all these extenuating factors that people just don't talk about because they want to be, intentionally obtuse about it. The Chiefs still would have had a minute 30, a minute to turn around and rebut. And people act like that was the decisive play of the Super Bowl when it certainly wasn't. I would argue it wasn't any more decisive than that Kittle play earlier in the second quarter. So you have to look at the big picture. And in the big picture, Garoppolo put together a great 2019 season for the 49ers, and that's why he's still around. That's why he's still entrenched as the quarterback one moving forward. It shouldn't be that hard to understand. The reason that Trey Lance is in there is because Kyle Shanahan wants transcendence. Kyle Shanahan saw Trey Lance, fell in love with him, and he wants his Steve Young. He wants his John Elway. But Steve Young and John Elway, those guys weren't built overnight. So, we'll see if the 49ers can develop Trey Lance into that. But, with Kyle Shanahan's thinking, that kills two birds with one stone right now, because Jimmy Garoppolo has been, very afflicted by injuries. There's been many of them. He's missed a lot of time. And Jimmy Garoppolo is only under contract for 2 more seasons. So Kyle Shanahan can buy short-term insurance for the quarterback room with Trey Lance while also setting up a potential high-ceiling long-term plan with Trey Lance. Simple as that. Again, Shanahan and Lynch have emphasized this many times. It's not a knock on Garoppolo's play. It's more of a knock on Garoppolo's availability, which might be even more important than the play. But it's also a testament to how much they like Trey Lance. So 2 things can be true at once. You can like Jimmy Garoppolo, you can like Trey Lance, and you can move forward with both quarterbacks. Aren't teams more happy with multiple good wide receivers? Aren't teams more happy with multiple good offensive linemen? Aren't teams more happy with multiple good defensive linemen? Yes, so they can be happy with multiple good quarterbacks. That's where the 49ers are right now. No, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't lose the Super Bowl in the fourth quarter. The 49ers lost the Super Bowl. He took vicious helmet-to-helmet hits in the fourth quarter. The interior pass protection was not up to standard. The defense bled yardage in the fourth quarter. Again, you're being intentionally obtuse by zeroing in on one player, just not reality. There's a lot of people on social media that don't live in reality, and that is one of those unrealistic takes. The whole 49ers team played like garbage in that fourth quarter, and it started with the interior protection. It continued with Garoppolo, and you could call everybody out. You could say this is what happened. This is why they lost the Super Bowl, and that's the truth. And when you do that, you can also say, these guys did a lot of good stuff through the first 3+ quarters, right? And the Chiefs did a lot of good stuff, especially toward the end of the game, and the Chiefs were world champions. That's sports. It happens. It's not, there's never just one thing. And if there's just one thing, there's a reason why, you think there's just one thing, there's a reason why you're commenting on a YouTube video and not running, the 49ers are not running an NFL team. It is way more than one thing. It's light contact at OTAs, but did you get a chance to assess Banks' movement skills relative to the other linemen? It's too tough to do that right now. I've assessed Aaron Banks' movement skills in my feature about him, and I'll share it right here. Talking to his staff at Notre Dame, talking to all those people, but that's all I can do for right now. It's too hard to tell in OTAs. So I've now written features on essentially every single 49ers rookie over the past month. That's the Aaron Banks one on The Athletic. Make sure you check that out. Again, I'm going to share Watkins one more time. He's Sammy Watkins' cousin. So he has that NFL pedigree. He's out of Fort Myers, and he went to Dodge City Community College out in Kansas, and then he went to Alabama Birmingham. And just a lot to like for an undrafted free agent because it's a low risk pickup, but NFL body, right? And that's big to me because of the run blocking. So anyway, I linked back to that. And you have the article right there in the bottom right. Sign up to The Athletic. It's like $3 a month right now. Shouldn't be too much. Read about Austin Watkins Jr. today, and I'll answer one more question here from Goobville. I've been answering some of your questions today. What are the chances that, sorry to pick on you, by the way, but it just bugs me when people focus on one play. Yes, I saw your other comment up there. The QB gets the blame. It is what it is. The QB gets the blame in hot take world. That's not what I'm doing here. I write longer pieces. I do these longer YouTube lives with you guys to actually delve into stuff and be smart about analysis and not just yell that Jimmy Garoppolo sucks at every single juncture I get, because that's just not true. So we do long analysis here. We actually thoughtfully talk about the games. And that's why it just bugs me when people try to simplify things that shouldn't be simplified. So I didn't mean to pick on you, but it was a good opportunity to illustrate the point. And for that, I will answer your last two questions. What are the chances Talanoa changes to linebacker? Talanoa Hufanga, I think he's going to be a hybrid player for the 49ers. He would need to put on some more weight. He's a little bit light to be a linebacker, but he could be that hybrid strong safety, weak side linebacker type. So I would say the chances are 100% because I think the 49ers view him as a hybrid, but I don't think he's going to be there full time. And let me answer your last question. Do the 49ers truly believe Ford will be back? And can you address the edge position? Kind of confused they didn't take an edge in the draft. The 49ers truly believe that D Ford will be back. Yes, I think D Ford truly believes he'll be back. That's why he deferred some of the guaranteed money to 2022. So D Ford bet on himself. I think the 49ers believe that he'll be back. That'd be great news for the 49ers. If they could even get 80% of D Ford, what he used to be, they'd be very, very excited about that. And the reason they didn't address the edge situation in the draft is because it takes a lot of draft capital to acquire a quality edge, right, who can go in there and produce right away. And they didn't have that draft capital. They needed to use it for other spots, like for the interior line and Aaron Banks. So what they did instead is they put some faith in D Ford, and they went out and got Arden Key, who, former third-round pick for the Raiders. They believe Chris Kasurek can develop. And, of course, they also signed Samson Ebukam before that. So I thought that the 49ers actually invested a lot into edge position this offseason when you consider all of that. And it just, there are opportunity costs at every juncture. if they spend a draft pick on an edge rusher and the class wasn't even this great this year as far as edge rushers went, you can't use it on somebody else. So that hopefully answers your question. Yes, the edge class was weak this year. Anyway, thanks to all of you for your questions. We've gone exactly 45 minutes. I'll do another one of these soon. But be sure to check out those links and those articles, sign up for The Athletic, and give me a follow online, and we'll talk next time. All right, everybody have a good Thursday.